The first extract is Source A from the Handbook of London by Peter Cunningham, who describes a journey over the bridge in 1850. It's a long time ago, 170 years. So I will read this now. You'll have the same extract in front of you and try to follow either on your screen or on a printout. On crossing the bridge, the traveller should pause for a moment to note the animated scene presented by the river above and below bridge. The silent highway, as it is most inappropriately called, is crowded with restless little steamboats, wherries, lumbering barges and steam tugs. From the bridge, eastwards, extends the Pool, thronged with 1,000 masts and adorned with flags and streamers of every nation. Here is placed the great fish market of Billingsgate, and yonder rises the stately facade of the Custom House, while, in the distance, soars conspicuous the turreted keep of the famous Tower. Looking up the river westward, we catch sight of Southwark and Blackfriars bridges, of banks lined with enormous warehouses, and of a far-reaching vista of roofs, above which dominates, in misty grandeur, the glorious dome of St. Paul's. Nor is the bridge itself, with its double tides of traffic, onrushing, never ceasing, appallingly regular in their continual motion, less worthy of observation. It is the busiest traject in the civilized world, and groans beneath the products of every clime. At its foot, on the one hand, stands Adelaide Place, a conglomeration of city offices. On the other, the stately pile of Fishmongers' Hall, the meeting place of the members of a wealthy civic guild. Beneath us, through a dry arch, runs an apparently endless line of stores, warehouses and wharfs. The steps on the right lead to the quay for the Hull, Rotterdam and Scotch steamers. At the corner is St. Magnus Church, built by Sir Christopher Wren. On the left, to the place of embarkation and disembarkation of the cheap steamboats which ply between London Bridge, Westminster and Battersea. Proceeding from the bridge, we observe a turning on the right, whose descent is occupied by the graceful column of the monument. Source B. This one written from a modern travel blog, only in 2014, where Sarah Shoemate visits Tower Bridge. So this one will describe the London that we are much more familiar with, the London that we may have visited ourselves. I'll never forget the first time I saw Tower Bridge. I hadn't been living in London for very long, and I was out taking a walk with some new friends along the river, when there it was, the Tower Bridge, standing tall and mighty in the middle of the Thames. I wanted to jump up and down and start pointing, because to my amazement it seemed no one else in the group had noticed it. Why was no one else as starstruck as I was? As I now know a year later, when you live in London long enough, you learn to accept these famous landmarks as part of the scenery and continue on with your day. But in my newness to the city, I couldn't hide my excitement. The girls I was with humoured me and even took a detour from our path so I could walk across the bridge for the first time. I know it doesn't sound like much. I mean, I walked across a bridge. Big deal. But I felt the same the first time I saw Big Ben in person too. These locations I'd previously only seen in movies were reminders that this was real. I was finally an expat again in another country. I couldn't help but be thrilled about that. I've now walked past Tower Bridge no less than 2 or 3 dozen times, so that initial thrill of seeing the famous bridge has faded a bit, but it's still one of my favourite landmarks in the city. This summer, we made an afternoon of it, and picnicked beside the bridge on the banks of the Thames before taking the tour that would allow us to go inside Tower Bridge and walk across the pathways connecting the two towers. It's such a neat experience, as you'll see in the pictures below. Even more so now, with the release of the news last week that glass floors have been added to the West Walkway, allowing visitors to get a bird's eye view from the bridge. The glass path in the East Walkway is expected to be completed next month. Don't worry, I hear there are still regular floors on each side of the glass. So if you don't want to walk across the glass, you don't have to. So we're looking at question 2, English language paper 2, which is writing a summary, and it's 8 marks. In the end, in year 11, in your exams, when you approach this task, it will take you about 10 minutes, but it's absolutely fine if at the moment it takes you a lot longer. And what's really important is the preparation and planning for answering this question. So you'll see at the bottom of the sheet the task underneath the headline questions. Question 2, 8 marks, 10 minutes. Write a summary of the differences between the Tower Bridge seen in 1850 in source A and the modern day viewing of it in source B. What we're going to do for a few minutes is try and show you how you might highlight this and how you might try to plan an answer, because in many ways it feels overwhelming. There's a lot of information here that you need to take in quite quickly. I've got a helper with me, Miss Peplow. Hello.
Hello.
So you've just read that as well.
I have.
And for the first time?
Absolutely.
So my first response to source A is there's a lot, and I find it quite confusing.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, my tip here would be, especially for question 2, where we're looking at a summary of differences, is you've got to really think about what it is precisely we're being asked to look for.
Yeah.
And here it says we're looking for Tower Bridge in particular.
Do you think a good step 1 would be to find all the references to Tower Bridge or the bridge?
I think so. I think narrow what you're looking for to the bridge itself at this stage.
So we've got, on crossing the bridge, the traveller should pause to note the animated scene. I'm going to have animated scene.
Mm-hmm.
But what does that mean?
Well, animated means kind of really alive, doesn't it? If you think about what animation is.
Yeah.
Coming to life.
Then a lot of it is about the view and what we can see. So that is distracting. From the bridge eastwards, the fish market, the flags in every nation. I'm not sure what it's telling me about the bridge.
Well, this is, I guess, the view from the bridge, isn't it, rather than the bridge itself. So you could perhaps take a section of that and say there's a great view from the bridge.
So the word vista means view, doesn't it? A far-reaching vista. So what the bridge actually does for us is it provides us a great view of London.
Yeah.
It's like a centre point.
Yeah.
It makes it important.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything you would pick that we could highlight to show us something about the bridge in the 1850 extract?
I think the fact that it's a crossing and that we've got this double tides of traffic, things coming back and forth.
Yeah.
So this is a place where worlds meet, people are using it to get to one place to
It's very busy.
Yeah.
It's busy. It's functional. The bridge provides a real function. People need it.
Yeah.
They need it for the boats to come under, to pass over to the markets. So it has real purpose. It's a functional working bridge. It allows the boats to come up and down the river because it opens and closes, and it has warehouses alongside it. So it's a great. It's not just a landmark, is it? It's functional.
Yeah. It's a business centre.
Yeah. So I could pick flags and steamers of every nation because this is a time of British Empire, isn't it? So this is a time when people are coming in on great merchant ships with cotton, tea, cloth, silks, and bringing them into London. So Tower Bridge is the gateway to London, really.
That's a nice way of putting it, actually, isn't it?
So I picked something I might annotate there. I'm not looking for methods here.
No, you're just looking for how, where references to the bridge are.
So if I were to sort of label animated scene with my own words, what might I write, do you think? Lively?
Lively, busy.
I think it's exciting.
Yeah, I do.
So it's an exciting place to be. It's very active. It's a centre point. It sounds to me quite magnificent.
I think so.
So those are the sorts of things I might do, and then that would be my summary of the Tower Bridge in 1850.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what about B then? I find B a bit easier.
I think what you've got to think about here with question 2, because we're being asked about differences. So what you need to look here is where is this bridge different specifically? Because there are going to be similarities here.
Yeah.
So where is it different?
There's no talk about boats, really. There's no real talk about shipping and and it being used as a functional bridge. It's more to do, I think, do you think Sarah's American?
I think so, and I think here she's really talking about this being a landmark.
Yeah.
It's kind of historical, something that we associate with London and the place of London.
Like a symbol.
Yeah.
And she said it's still one of my favourite landmarks.
Yeah.
So therefore, for her, it symbolises London. But it's more something to look at. It's a beautiful piece of architecture.
Yeah, and it's thrilling and exciting because this is the sort of thing you see in movies. It's iconic, I guess, isn't it?
I've only seen in movies, but this was real. So actually, it's exciting in a different way. It's not exciting because it's busy with shipping and activity and merchants. It's exciting because of its history and its importance. So if I've picked only seen in movies, but now it's real, one of my favourite landmarks, I'd like one. I quite like the Tower Bridge standing tall and mighty.
Yeah. There is also a physical difference here, of course, in that they've modified it for tourism, and that kind of builds on that idea of it being a place that tourists want to go and see.
Yeah.
And I think you could look towards the end of the extract where it says about the glass paths being added in.
Yeah, because it would have been useless to have a glass path in 1850.
Yeah.
Or pointless.
Yeah.
But now, because people are just visiting it and excited to cross it, it's much more of a tourist destination and somewhere to enjoy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So when I write this up then, in my summary, what would you recommend? 15 minutes?
I think 15 minutes is fair after you've annotated. Yeah.
With a view to getting faster in the future?
I think so.
So do I need to compare all the way through, or could I write about A and then B?
I think in some respects it's better to compare as you go, but you can write about one for a certain period of time and then reflect back. So
you could perhaps write, in source A, it's a very functional bridge, it's busy and lively, there's flags from every nation, which suggests that people from all around the globe visit with their trade, and it offers a crossing, a place to cross in London and a place to travel up the Thames. But it's really, the focus here is functional. It's a working bridge.
It's about business, livelihood, money.
Whereas in B, it's about it being a historic landmark, an iconic symbol. I think we all know what Tower Bridge looks like, isn't it? The great ornate
one. It's a really
one.
sort of gold and blue that lifts up. They only lift it now, really, on special occasions.
And so you could Google that to have a look, and you probably recognise it.
Yeah.
People run over it in a marathon, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
So you would say that it physically appears different now. It hasn't got that sense of busy business, community, that activity going on. The activity now is very different. It's still magnificent, but it's now become a landmark rather than a working functional bridge.
Yeah. It's romantic, it's iconic, it's where tourists come to experience London.
And if you wanted to do a comparison all the way through, you could look at three main points, which are the purpose of the bridge. So the original purpose is that it's actively there to support the trade, London trade and business, whereas in B it brings in tourist revenue. It's a tourist destination. You can look at its physical difference, where we don't hear very much about it actually as a physical structure. Yet in B, it's all about the design, all about the architecture, all about the beauty
and the glass floors.
And what would be the third thing you could compare? Do you think? It's quite interesting, isn't it? In A, we're using Tower Bridge to look out at London as a viewpoint, whereas in B, we're all looking at Tower Bridge.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
So it's gone from being the place to look out at London to being a place to look at and become an embodiment. It's become London. We see Tower Bridge, we think London. I'm sure if people look at Tower Bridge on Google, they'll go, I've seen that before.
Yeah, it's one of the top three things, isn't it? Big Ben, that big wheel, what's it called? The Millennium
London Eye.
London Eye, and the Tower Bridge.
Yeah, exactly. And you look down on London and you see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so no methods in here, but you want Chris Rice, don't you? So you might write the glass path highlights how it's become a tourist destination and somewhere people visit for fun and enjoyment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you have a look on the Show My Homework post, you'll see an example of how you might do that. Some sentence starters to help you if you need them.
Yeah. And you could go back and look again at the video on Bite Size that we've put up for people to see with Kyle Walker.
Now, we'd like you to submit your work on GCSE Pod, and on there's another video on question 2 that you can use if you like. And that can give you a little bit more advice. But when you're writing this, I think 15 minutes should be more than enough.
And do you know what I think? Don't overthink.
Yeah.
Use some of these ideas, not all of them. Don't be overwhelmed by the rest of the text. You don't need to mention the rest of it. Just pick the parts that you've highlighted. You can choose your own or you can use ours.
Yeah. Okay.
Good luck.